Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going deep on some really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Special Counsel Jack Smith's report
Hmm.
on Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election.
Oh, wow.
We've got a lot to cover.
Oh.
Smith's 146-page report itself,
Okay.
and we also have a response from Trump's legal team. We're going to try to break it all down for you.
It's a deep dive into a really historic moment.
For sure.
And the implications of this report,
Yeah.
they're still unfolding.
Exactly. So to really understand what's going on here, let's rewind back to January 6th, 2021.
Okay.
You might remember the chaos of the Capitol,
Oh, yeah.
the protests,
Mm.
the violence.
Right.
Well, this report digs into what led up to that day
Okay.
and the legal fallout that followed.
It's important to note that the report focuses specifically on Trump's actions,
Yeah,
not on the broader events of January 6th.
right. And speaking of Trump,
Mm-hmm.
his lawyers are already firing back,
Oh, really?
claiming this is all just a politically motivated attack.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that,
Yeah.
let's take a look at who Jack Smith is
Okay.
and why his report carries so much weight.
Smith has an impressive 30-year career
Yeah.
as a prosecutor,
Hmm.
working on cases at every level.
Right.
Local, national, even international.
Really?
The report highlights this experience to establish his credibility right from the start.
So he's not just some random lawyer with an axe to grind.
No.
He's got serious credentials.
Yeah.
And he makes it very clear in the report
Okay.
that no one from the Department of Justice interfered with his decisions about Trump.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
He's anticipating any accusations of bias
Right.
and shutting them down right away.
Smart move. Now, the report itself
Okay.
is divided into two volumes,
Right.
Election Interference and Classified Documents.
Okay.
We're focusing on Volume 1,
Okay.
the election case.
Gotcha.
Smith outlines 4 key areas where Trump allegedly tried to interfere with the election results.
Yeah.
Think of it like a roadmap of the investigation.
A roadmap with some pretty unsettling stops along the way.
Oh, boy.
The first one is pressure on state officials.
Right. And this is where we see Trump directly contacting officials in states where he lost, trying to get them to change the outcome.
Wow.
The most glaring example, of course, is that infamous phone call with Georgia's Secretary of State.
The one where Trump asks him to find 11,780 votes,
Exactly.
the exact number he needed to win the state.
It's almost like something out of a movie.
It is?
And it wasn't just Georgia.
No.
He was trying to influence officials in other states as well.
Uh-huh.
The report even mentions that someone told Trump he lost Michigan because he didn't do well with educated women.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows the lengths he was willing to go to,
Yeah.
even grasping at demographic data
Wow.
to try and change the results.
Okay, next stop on our roadmap is
Okay.
fraudulent elector plan. This one gets a little complicated.
It does, but to put it simply, Trump's team came up with a scheme
Okay.
to create fake slates of electors in several states.
Okay, collectors.
Yeah, these electors would then cast their votes for Trump, even though he lost the popular vote in those states.
Wow.
It was a way to bypass the will of the voters.
So they were basically trying to create their own reality,
Exactly.
even though they knew it wasn't legitimate.
And they actually tried to submit these fake slates to Congress,
Oh, wow.
even though they were aware these electors weren't the real deal.
That's incredible.
It was a blatant attempt to undermine the entire Electoral College process.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the third area,
Okay.
misuse of the Justice Department. This sounds serious.
It is.
Yeah.
The report details how Trump tried to use the DOJ,
Ah,
the very institution designed to uphold the law,
right.
to cast doubt on the election results.
So he was basically trying to turn the Justice Department into his personal legal team.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It raises serious questions about abuse of power and whether a president can manipulate the justice system for their own benefit.
Okay, final stop on our roadmap is pressure on the vice president. This one's all about Mike Pence.
Yes. The report focuses on the intense pressure Trump put on Pence to overturn the election results during the certification process on January 6th.
Right.
Remember, Pence was presiding over that joint session of Congress?
And Pence, of course, resisted.
He did, despite Trump's relentless pressure.
Wow.
Trump even publicly claimed they were in total agreement, even though they clearly weren't.
Can you imagine being Pence in that situation?
Oh, yeah.
The weight of the entire election resting on your shoulders.
Right.
The president breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
Must have been incredibly intense.
Absolutely. He was caught in a constitutional crisis.
Right.
Torn between his loyalty to Trump and his duty to uphold the law.
So we've got these 4 areas of alleged interference, all building up to January 6th. What does the report say about that day and its aftermath?
It connects Trump's actions leading up to January 6th to the events of that day.
Okay.
His speech urging supporters to fight like hell and march to the Capitol is a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, those words take on a whole new meaning when you consider everything that happened afterward.
The report doesn't go into great detail about the violence and the injuries,
Right.
but it does mention the lasting impact on the Capitol police officers who were attacked.
And how does the report address the legal fallout of January 6th?
It lays out the legal basis for the 4 felony charges that were brought against Trump.
It's okay.
Charges like conspiracy to defraud the United States
Wow.
and obstruction of an official proceeding.
These are incredibly serious accusations.
They are.
No kidding. But what about Trump's defense?
Okay.
His legal team has always maintained that he was just exercising his right to free speech.
That's a crucial point, and the report tackles it head-on.
Okay.
It distinguishes between protected speech and speech used as an instrument of a crime.
So it's not just what he said,
Right.
but what he did with those words.
Exactly.
It's about intent and context.
Exactly. And the report argues that Trump's speech went far beyond protected political discourse. It was part of a deliberate plan to overturn the election.
Now, I'm curious about the why behind these charges.
Okay.
What were the federal interests at stake here?
Uh-huh.
Why was it so important to prosecute Trump, even though he was a former president?
The report is very clear on that.
Okay.
It argues that prosecuting Trump served several vital federal interests.
Okay.
The most important one being protecting the integrity of U.S. elections and ensuring a peaceful transfer of power.
So it's about more than just Trump.
Right.
It's about protecting the very fabric of American democracy.
Precisely. And that brings us to a really interesting question.
Okay.
Why not insurrection charges?
Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
What's the logic there? Why not go for the most serious charge?
Well, according to the report, it was a brand new legal question, and they felt there were other stronger charges available. Remember, this is uncharted territory legally.
Yeah.
Never before has a former president been charged with trying to overturn an election.
So Smith was essentially playing it safe.
Right.
Choosing the charges he felt were most likely to stick,
Exactly.
even if they weren't the most headline-grabbing.
That's a valid interpretation.
Yeah.
He was focused on building a solid legal case, not just making a political statement.
And what about all the other people mentioned in the report?
Okay.
The co-conspirators,
Uh-huh.
did they face charges too?
But that's something the report doesn't dive into deeply.
Right.
The main focus is on Trump's actions, but it does make clear that he wasn't acting alone. There were others involved in this effort to overturn the election.
Okay, so a bit of a cliffhanger there.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about this whole issue of immunity.
All right.
Trump's legal team tried to use his former position as president to shield him from prosecution. Right.
They did. They raised issues of executive privilege and presidential immunity throughout the investigation.
So they were trying to build a legal wall around the presidency,
Yeah.
saying you can't touch him, he was the president.
It's a fascinating legal strategy.
Yeah.
And it actually did have some impact.
Okay.
The report summarizes a Supreme Court decision that limited the use of some evidence due to immunity concerns. However, the court also rejected Trump's claim of absolute immunity for all his official actions.
So a partial win for both sides then.
You could say that Smith then obtained a superseding indictment based on non-immunized conduct,
Okay.
actions that fell outside the scope of presidential protection.
So he was basically saying,
Yeah.
okay, you can have your wall, but I'll find a way around it.
Clever legal maneuvering.
Yeah, but in the end, the case was dismissed, right?
Correct. The case was dropped because Trump was reelected.
Okay.
And there's a long-standing DOJ policy that a sitting president can't be indicted.
Wow. Talk about a legal loophole. So even though Trump wasn't ultimately tried, this report still paints a pretty damning picture of his actions.
Yeah.
It's out there for everyone to see.
It is, and it's important to remember that the report is just one side of the story.
Right.
We also have the response from Trump's legal team,
Yeah.
which is, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
quite different.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways from their response?
Well, right off the bat,
Okay.
they demand that Smith shut down the entire report.
So they're not just disagreeing with the findings.
No.
They're saying the whole thing is illegitimate.
Exactly. They accuse Smith of continuing a politically motivated attack on Trump even after the cases were dismissed.
So they're basically saying this is all just a partisan witch hunt.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they claim the report violates Trump's presumption of innocence
Okay.
and could interfere with the presidential transition process.
That's a pretty bold claim.
They're essentially trying to discredit the report before it even gains any traction, painting Smith as the villain and Trump as the victim.
It's a classic PR strategy.
Right.
Attack the messenger, not the message.
Exactly. And in their eyes, the message is simple.
Yeah.
Trump did nothing wrong.
Okay.
This investigation was a sham,
Right.
and this report should be completely ignored.
So we have two very different perspectives on this whole saga.
Yeah.
On one hand, Smith's detailed report laying out a potential case for criminal conduct.
Right.
On the other hand, Trump's team vehemently denying any wrongdoing
Yeah.
and accusing Smith of playing politics.
It's a clash of narratives that reflects the deep divisions in our country.
Yeah.
But regardless of your political stance,
Uh-huh.
this report gives you a solid grounding in the facts,
Right.
the arguments,
Okay.
and the key players involved in this historic moment.
It's like we're watching history unfold in real time. And there's one more intriguing piece to this puzzle.
Okay.
In their letter, Trump's team claimed something surprising about the timeline of the report and the access they were given.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
They claim that Smith's team initially imposed some rather unusual restrictions on their review of the report.
Like what?
They were only allowed to review the draft report in person
Oh, wow.
in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
with no outside electronic devices allowed.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Why all the secrecy?
Right.
It almost sounds like they were trying to make it as difficult as possible for Trump's team to respond effectively.
That's certainly the impression they're giving.
Yeah.
They also claim they were asked to delete prior Discovery productions, preventing them from referencing those documents while reviewing the report.
So essentially, limiting their ability to fact-check and contextualize the information in the report.
Exactly. And to make matters worse,
Oh, no.
they claim they were given a very tight deadline to submit their response,
How long?
just a week over the Christmas holiday.
Oh, wow.
They argue that this was an unreasonable time frame, given the travel and family commitments most people have during that period.
It does seem like a calculated move to put them at a disadvantage.
And here's where it gets even more intriguing.
Okay.
Trump's team claims that despite initially saying it would be too late to allow for review in early January, Smith's team backtracked and permitted review between January 3rd and 6th.
So they had a change of heart.
Yeah.
What prompted that?
It's not entirely clear, but even then,
Yeah.
they allege they were still restricted from accessing the internet
Wow.
or using their own electronic devices while reviewing the report.
It just seems so unnecessarily restrictive. Maybe they were afraid of Trump's team leaking the report's contents before it was officially released.
That's a valid point,
Okay.
and it raises questions about transparency and fairness.
Yeah, why so much secrecy?
Right.
What were they trying to hide?
It's a curious detail that adds another layer of complexity to this already convoluted story.
It does.
It really makes you question the motivations behind all of this.
And it underscores the importance of critical thinking.
For sure. We have to consider all perspectives, weigh the evidence,
Right.
and avoid jumping to conclusions.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more to unpack here, so let's take a quick break
Okay.
and come back to dig deeper into the legal arguments presented by Trump's lawyers.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. Now let's dive into the legal trenches
Okay.
and examine the arguments Trump's lawyers are using to counter Smith's report.
All right,
Yeah.
put on your legal hats, folks. What are they saying? Are they like picking apart Smith's case point by point?
They're going even bigger than that.
Oh, wow.
They're challenging the very legitimacy of the report,
Okay.
claiming it's unlawful because Smith's authority as special counsel,
Okay.
according to them,
Uh-huh.
had already expired.
Hold on. How does that work? How can his authority just vanish like that?
They're pointing to the regulations that govern special counsels.
Okay.
These regulations say a report can only be written when the special counsel is wrapping up their work.
So they're basically saying, Smith, you're done. The cases were dismissed. You can't write a report now.
Exactly.
It's like trying to score a goal after the whistle's blown.
That's their argument in a nutshell.
Okay.
They claim that by creating this report after the cases were dismissed, Smith is overstepping his boundaries, acting unlawfully.
But what do those special counsel regulations actually say about the timing of the report? Is it really that black and white?
Well, there's some wiggle room.
Okay.
The regulations state that the special counsel should provide a report explaining their decisions on whether to prosecute or not, but they don't explicitly say if that report has to come before or after court proceedings.
So it's a bit of a legal gray area.
Right.
And Trump's lawyers are seizing on that ambiguity,
Exactly.
trying to use it to their advantage.
Yeah.
Clever. What else are they arguing?
They're also claiming that releasing this report could disrupt the current presidential transition process.
Okay. I can see where they're going with this. How would it do that exactly?
Yeah, they argue that by releasing this potentially damaging report, just as Trump is about to take office again,
Right.
it creates unnecessary distractions and weakens his ability to govern effectively.
So they're implying that the timing of this report is no coincidence.
Right.
It's a deliberate move to sabotage Trump's presidency before it even begins.
Exactly. They're trying to portray Smith as a partisan figure.
Okay.
Someone with a political agenda
Right.
who's trying to undermine Trump's presidency from day one.
And to bolster their argument, they're bringing in the Presidential Transition Act.
Yeah.
How does that fit into all of this?
They're cleverly citing the act, which emphasizes the importance of a smooth and orderly transfer of power.
Okay.
They're arguing that releasing this report would throw a wrench in the gears of that process.
It's a smart legal tactic.
Yeah.
Connecting their argument to this established law.
Right.
They're basically saying that Smith is jeopardizing a smooth transition of power, which is a pretty serious accusation.
They don't stop there.
Oh, boy.
They go on to accuse Smith of violating Trump's presumption of innocence
Okay.
by publicly discussing the allegations against him.
Now, this is where it gets interesting for me. Didn't Smith drop the charges against Trump?
Yeah.
So why are they so concerned about his presumption of innocence if the legal case is closed?
That's a great question, and it highlights the lingering impact of these accusations. Even though they never reached a trial,
Yeah.
Trump's team is deeply concerned about the potential damage to his reputation and his legacy.
It's like a stain that's hard to remove,
Right.
even if you're never found guilty.
Exactly.
The accusations alone can have a lasting impact.
Exactly. They're arguing that Smith's report is pouring gasoline on that fire, keeping those accusations alive and hindering Trump's ability to start fresh.
Right.
They see it as a deliberate attempt to tarnish his image.
So it's not just a legal battle they're fighting,
Right.
but a public relations battle as well. They want to control how the public perceives Trump in light of these allegations.
Precisely, they understand the power of public perception
Yeah.
and how it can shape political realities.
Okay, so now let's talk about this argument about the purpose of the report.
Okay.
Trump's team is essentially saying, what's the point? What purpose does this report serve?
Exactly. Their argument is that since the courts already resolved the cases, there's no need for a separate report from the special counsel.
Right. They're saying the courts had their say, the matter's settled, time to move on. Why drag this up again?
Right. And they point out that the Justice Department hasn't released a special counsel report on someone who successfully defended themselves in court in over 25 years.
Wow.
They're arguing that Smith is breaking with precedent,
Okay.
setting a potentially dangerous new standard.
So they're suggesting that this could have far-reaching consequences beyond just Trump himself.
Right.
It could change how special counsels operate in the future.
That's their concern. And it ties into a broader point they're making about the role of special counsels in our justice system.
They're advocating for a more cautious and limited use of these powerful investigative tools.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's their take on the role of special counsels?
They argue that special counsels should only be used sparingly.
Okay.
And in extraordinary circumstances,
Right.
they point to past criticisms of the Independent Counsel Act,
Okay.
the precursor to the current special counsel regulations.
And those criticisms were mainly about what?
There were concerns that independent counsels,
Okay.
with their broad investigative powers, could be misused for partisan purposes
Okay.
to go after political rivals.
Right. So there's a fear that they could become tools for political vendettas rather than impartial investigations.
Exactly. And Trump's team is arguing that Smith's actions in this case exemplify that very danger.
Okay.
They're saying this is exactly what they were worried about.
Right.
A prosecutor running amok with a political agenda.
They're painting a picture of Smith as a rogue prosecutor
Exactly.
who's overstepping his bounds and abusing his power for personal gain. That's the narrative they're pushing.
Okay.
They even quote former Attorney General Janet Reno,
Interesting.
who expressed concerns about the reporting requirements of the Independent Counsel Act, saying they go directly against most traditions and practices of law enforcement and American ideals.
Wow, that's a powerful quote.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying that Smith's report is a threat to the very principles of fairness and impartiality in our justice system.
Right.
It's a serious accusation.
It is, and it reflects a larger debate about prosecutorial discretion and accountability.
Yeah, where do you draw the line between pursuing justice and using the law for political ends?
It's a question that goes beyond Trump and Smith.
Right.
It's about the balance of power in our government,
Uh-huh.
the limits of executive authority,
Right.
and the importance of upholding the rule of law without letting personal biases interfere.
You've hit the nail on the head. This case raises profound constitutional questions
Yeah.
that will continue to be debated for years to come.
Hello?
It's about more than just one man or one election.
Right.
It's about the very foundation of our democracy and how we ensure its integrity.
And it seems like those questions are intertwined with politics.
They are.
It's hard to separate the legal arguments from the political context.
Absolutely. We're witnessing a collision between law and politics.
Yeah.
And the outcome of this clash will have a significant impact on the future of our democracy.
It's a critical moment full of uncertainty and tension.
It's a lot to absorb,
Huh.
and we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored the report,
Uh-huh.
dissected the legal arguments,
Right.
and examined the broader implications of this case.
Yeah, but where do we go from here?
Right.
What does this all mean for the future?
Let's take a short break
Okay.
to gather our thoughts,
Sounds good.
and then come back to wrap up this complex and fascinating story. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been through a lot. The details of Jack Smith's report, the fiery response from Trump's lawyers. It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
Legal arguments and political maneuvering.
We've seen the evidence,
Yeah.
accusations, the defenses,
And you've really had to think critically
Yeah.
about everything.
absolutely.
But that's the point of this deep dive, right?
Yeah.
To equip you with the knowledge to form your own informed opinions.
For sure.
So as we wrap things up,
Yeah.
let's step back and consider, what does it all mean? What are the lasting consequences
Yeah.
of this whole saga?
Well, on one level, it's a stark reminder of just how fragile our democracy can be.
Yeah.
The fact that a sitting president could even attempt to overturn an election result that's deeply unsettling.
It really shakes your faith in the system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, are these safeguards strong enough?
It's definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah.
We can't just assume our democracy will always be there.
Right.
We have to actively protect it, defend it against those who try to manipulate or undermine it.
And it's not just about elections,
Yeah.
right? This whole thing raises questions about the rule of law, the peaceful transfer of power,
Right.
holding those in power accountable.
Exactly. Those are the cornerstones of any functioning democracy.
Yeah.
And this report shows how those very principles can be threatened even here in the U.S.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact on democracy, but what about the political fallout?
Yeah.
Has this whole saga done irreparable damage to our political system?
That's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
It's certainly deepened the divisions in our country.
Mm.
It's fueled distrust in our institutions
Right.
and made it even harder to have a civil conversation about important issues.
You're right. It feels like everyone's retreating further into their own corners, only consuming information that reinforces their existing beliefs.
It's the age of hyperpartisanship.
Yeah.
Facts are disputed, truth is elusive, and even a report as detailed as this one will likely be viewed through those partisan lenses.
It's frustrating, isn't it? It feels like we can't even agree on a shared reality anymore.
It's a
Some people will see this report as undeniable proof of Trump's wrongdoing. Others will dismiss it as a politically motivated hit job.
It's a classic he said, she said situation. And in that kind of environment, it's incredibly difficult to get to the bottom of things.
But even if we can't agree on the facts,
Yeah.
we can at least agree that this report is a historical document of enormous significance, right?
Absolutely.
It captures a pivotal moment in American history.
It's a primary source, a firsthand account of what happened. Historians, legal scholars, political scientists, They'll be studying this report for decades to come.
It's a testament to the importance of accountability, the power of investigation. And even though democracy was tested,
Right?
the fact that this investigation happened at all shows a certain resilience, wouldn't you say?
I agree. It shows that even in the face of immense pressure,
Yeah.
our institutions can still function.
Right.
They can still hold those in power accountable.
But that doesn't mean we can just sit back and relax.
No.
This report leaves us with some really tough questions to grapple with. It does. How do we prevent something like this from happening again? How do we restore trust in our institutions?
Right.
How do we bridge these deep divisions in our society?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
They are.
And there are no easy answers. But one thing's for sure,
Yeah.
we can't afford to ignore these questions.
Right.
The future of our democracy depends on how we address them.
And that starts with each of us
It does.
being informed,
Yeah.
engaging in thoughtful discussions, being willing to listen to different perspectives.
Right.
It's hard work, but it's essential.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
We have to be active participants in our democracy,
Right.
not passive observers.
Yeah.
That's how we protect it. That's how we strengthen it.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
We've taken a deep dive into a complex and consequential moment in American history.
A truly unprecedented moment.
It is. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of the events,
Right.
the arguments, and the stakes involved.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The story is still unfolding. And the implications of this report will continue to ripple outwards for years to come.
So keep those critical thinking skills sharp, stay engaged, and as always, keep diving deeper.